Hello, let's talk about Rvltn, number 4 in the Matthew Shrdlk series by C.J. Sampson, set in Henry VIII England. Matthew Shrdlk has started out the series as one lawyer, one of Cromwell's men. Sort of very started out as very much kind of a true believer in what he saw as a mission to reform England religiously, politically. And a part of this was the dissolution of the churches, the disestablishment of the church in general. Ended up with Henry VIII, because that's the guy who was running things as the head of the church. And at the beginning of Henry's reign, he was a far more was looking at things a lot more reform going on there. And revolutionary stuff like publishing the Bible and allowing anyone to read it, and giving rise to very much, this is kind of the Protestantism in England. Now, that is sort of all the backdrop of Matthew Shrdlk doing its mystery series, with Matthew Shrdlk kind of getting involved in various different crimes or things that have happened. The one this time is unfortunately turns into a serial killer case. A serial killer who is using the Book of Revelations as his blueprint to commit kind of ghastly yet thematic murders. And maybe it's my showing my age, but I kind of went through the Hannibal Lecter's and like all the multiple serial killers. I didn't particularly read much of that, but it was unavoidable in freaking like every other movie. There was a serial killer at work, and I kind of am tired of that. So I have to say that's, like, as much as I really like Matthew Shrdlk and his series, that is less of a thing for me to that's less of a draw for me this time about. Now, that said, it's funny because you read reviews of this book on Goodreads, and there seems to be a reaction of people like me as like, serial killers. I'm not much in for serial killers. You also get a lot of people going like, oh, this book's got a lot of religion in it, which is like, it's set in basically the ground zero of the great schism of the church, the Roman. This is the schism of the church in Western culture. This is like the Roman Catholic Church and the faith was the center, the all of people's lives, especially maybe more the people who are in control lives, and used as their kind of a tool for subjugation, I would say, speaking as an atheist in modern times. But it's like that's the air that these people are breathing at this point. It was kind of unavoidable for it to be all about religion. And it's funny because some people are more like, well, I'm not into religion, so I'm not liking it. And then there's the people on the other side, because C.J. Sampson, I think quite smartly, has Shrdlk be someone who, yes, he was sort of a true believer, at early days with Cromwell about reforming the church. But as he's gone on, he's just seen both sides be so freaking horrible to each other that he is very, if not completely irreligious, is somebody who is very disillusioned by the church. There's churchy religion, and then there's spirituality, and I don't know how much Shrdlk really is into the spirituality side, the touchy-feely spirituality side, which you can see, but being someone who is kind of close to being almost an atheist, is like he's got to really kind of keep his tongue to himself. But it also gives him he's a great viewpoint character for a modern reader, and maybe a modern reader like me, whereas it seemed like maybe other people were like, oh, he's somebody who's running down religion all the time, and they didn't like that part of it. So it kind of offended people on either side, which it sounds like he's doing a good job. Now, the thing about the serial killer thing is, it's the serial killer is in a lot of ways, because he's using the Book of Revelation and is a true believer himself, actually does kind of, I can see why CJ Sampson took that as, I'm gonna use this to meld these two things together. The religious fanaticism of the time on both sides, you know, where you get Cromwell or Thomas More, and they're both torturing people, and they're both, you know, they're basically like, if you're not on our side, you're a heretic. We can do anything to you because we're gonna say, you know, it's gonna be save your soul or shit like that. You know, the lovely stuff that people do in the name of religion, this made up bullshit. Which brings great comfort and gives great meaning, and yet at the same time, because it gives such great meaning, people really take this shit seriously, to the point where they're willing to, quite happy to murder each other over it, and did a lot at this point in Britain and Western tradition. I mean, half the reason why people are on the North American continent is because they just fucking couldn't get along with the people on the other continent. Well, you know, that, or, I mean, I think what CJ Sampson does a really good job of showing there's all the little people like Shrdlk, like a lot of other people who are just like, oh, we're just trying to get by, and we might have our own personal beliefs, but just please don't kill us. And, you know, the idea of like, this is like, I love how he kind of portrays a really visceral, like, shit, if you're on the wrong side of, like, you know, we talk about class inequality now, but it's like, if you make the wrong enemy, of which Shrdlk has made a couple of bad enemies out of very powerful men powerful enough that with one word he's just dead. He's like, it's like, holy shit, I have to be careful. Richard Rich, and there's a couple of other people that, you know, even like bumping into the king at a wrong moment and him mocking him in a last book, still gets thrown in his face in this book. It's like it's tarnished him, it's branded him as this misshapen, laughable hunchback, because that's the other thing about that kind of puts Shrdlk up there with, I guess, Columbo or stuff like that, of just like, you know, he's an odd fellow, he's an outsider, he's not comfortable anywhere, he's not kind of thing. People judge him on his appearance. You must be damned if you are a misshapen creature. You know, that's the kind of the ableist thinking that, of course, went on at this time and still goes on now, of how people who are better looking can get, you know, whatever the convention of better looking, still, you know, get treated better and have a far easier life than somebody who does not have the conventional, whatever the conventional beauty standards are of the time. So yeah, I mean, so yeah, the serial killer thing, it was just like, okay, let's kind of get through this. It was like a lot of gruesome murder stuff, which I can't say is my thing. I'm far more interested in the political side, the political religious side of that sort of thing, versus what is, I guess, what CJ Sampson would argue is this is the extreme thing, as you could say, serial killers like in Canada preying on you know, Native women today is really, that is the thing that shows basically, you know, the worst of our society has taken our worst values and used that to fuel themselves and used it to select their prey. That comes to mind because there's a big battle at the moment over a serial killer who was working in, I think it's in Winnipeg, who had murdered women and had literally put them in the trash. And there's a big fight at the moment because there are Native women who are probably preyed on in homeless shelters, who are in these landfills, and the governments do not want to. It's going to cost a shit ton of money, and they're like, basically like, no, it's not worth it. And I mean, it would be a shit ton of money, but quite rightly, Native peoples see this is genocide. You want to talk about this is a direct these women in these homeless shelters getting preyed upon by the most, evil motherfucker, despicable shit in mainstream society. I mean, yes, it's like we're not all serial killers, but we're all participants, unfortunately, in the genocide of Native peoples in this country, whether we like it or not, having just by being a part of this country. And I'm going off a complete tangent, but yeah, it's just like that is, I think, what we're tapping into with CJ Sampson is trying to tap into with the serial killer. Unfortunately, I think it's just so ghoulish and gross that it comes off as more kind of it's serial killer exploitation. So that part of it I didn't like so much. I did love the religion. I did love the politics, the history of it. Just CJ Sampson's just like does a really good job of evoking this time in England of Henry VIII, and just maybe what it would be like to be someone trying to struggle through that time as a normal person, not one of the great men who's battling out, but what is one of the little people who's just fucking dodging and trying not to get trampled to death, and live their life and maybe find some happiness. And of course, Shrdlk, poor Shrdlk, never finding happiness. But that's the if he was a happy, well-adjusted guy who retired, well, then there would be no. So we want him to be miserable, in that delicious sort of way that I know I drink up, and a lot of other people do. So yeah, that is Rvltn, number 4 in the Matthew Shrdlk series by CJ Sampson, with a long little sideways thing into serial killers in Canada and how we're all responsible and should pay. All right, I will leave it there. More videos later.